Peter the Wild Boy was a boy from Hanover in northern Germany who was found in 1725 living wild in the woods near Hamelin, the town of Pied Piper legend. The boy, of unknown parentage, had been living an entirely feral existence for an unknown length of time, surviving by eating forest flora. He walked on all fours, exhibited uncivilized behaviour, and could not be taught to speak a language. He is now believed to have suffered from the very rare genetic disorder Pitt-Hopkins Syndrome. Peter was found in the Hertswold Forest by a party of hunters led by George I while on a visit to his Hanover homeland and brought to Great Britain in 1726 by order of his daughter-in-law Caroline of Ansbach, the Princess of Wales. Life in London. After Peter's transportation to Britain, curiosity and speculation concerning Peter was excited in London. The craze was the subject of a biting satire by Jonathan Swift, and of another entitled The Most Wonderful Wonder That Ever Appeared, The Wonder of the British Nation, which has been attributed to Swift and John Arbuthnot. Daniel Defoe also wrote on the subject in his pamphlet Mere Nature Delineated. James Burnet, Lord Monboddo, in his Origin and Progress of Language, presents Peter as an illustration of his theory of the evolution of the human species. Caroline, Princess of Wales, took an interest in Peter's welfare, and in 1726, after the initial public curiosity began to subside, she arranged for Dr. Arbuthnot to oversee his education. All efforts to teach him to speak, read or write failed. The interior designer and painter William Kent included a depiction of Peter in a large painting of King George I's court that today hangs on the east wall of the King's Staircase at Kensington Palace in London. Peter is shown wearing a green coat and holding oak leaves and acorns in his right hand. Life in North Church. After he was discharged from the supervision of Dr. Arbuthnot, he was entrusted to the care of Mrs. Tichborne, one of the Queen's bedchamber women, with a handsome pension annexed to the charge. Mrs. Tichborne usually spent a few weeks every summer at the house of Mr. James Fenn, a yeoman farmer at Axter's End, in the parish of North Church, Hertfordshire. Peter was left there in the care of Mr. Fenn, who was allowed £35 a year for his support and maintenance. After the death of James Fenn, he was transferred to the care of James's brother Thomas Fenn at another farmhouse called Broadway, where he lived with the several successive tenants of that farm, and with the same government pension to the time of his death. In the late summer of 1751, Peter went missing from Broadway Farm and could not be traced. Advertisements were placed in newspapers offering a reward for his safe return. On the 22nd of October 1751, a fire broke out in the parish of St Andrews in Norwich. As the fire spread, the local jail became engulfed in smoke and flame. The frightened inmates were hastily released, and one aroused considerable curiosity on account of his remarkable appearance, excessively hirsute and strong, and the nature of the sounds he made, which led some to describe him as an orangutan. Some days later he was identified as Peter the Wild Boy, possibly through a description of him in the London Evening Post. He was returned to Thomas Fenn's farm, and had a special leather collar with his name and address made for him to wear in future should he ever stray again. Peter lived to an estimated 70 years of age. He was visited in 1782 by the Scottish philosopher and judge James Burnet, Lord Monboddo, and was said to have a healthy complexion with a full white beard, and apparently understood what was said to him but was himself only capable of saying the words Peter and King George and humming a few songs. There is a portrait of the Wild Boy depicting a handsome old man with a white beard in Caulfield's Portraits of Remarkable Persons, Death and Burial. Peter died the 22nd of February 1785 and is buried in North Church. His grave can still be seen in the churchyard of St Mary's Church, North Church, directly outside the main door to the church. On the 20th of February 2013, it was announced by the Department for Culture, Media and Sport that the grave was to be given Grade 2 listing on the advice of English Heritage. In 2007, a blue heritage plaque was placed at the Wild Man pub in Bedford Street, near St Andrews in Norwich, commemorating Peter and his association with the district. Modern assessment. In 2011, the condition that afflicted Peter the Wild Boy was suspected to be the chromosomal disorder Pitt-Hopkins Syndrome, a condition identified only in 1978, nearly 200 years after Peter's death. Various physical attributes of Peter's which are evident in the Kensington Palace portrait have been matched to the condition, such as his curvy, Cupid's bow lips, his short stature, his coarse, curly hair, drooping eyelids and thick lips. An item on the BBC Radio 4 programme Making History, broadcast in March 2011, examined the history of Peter the Wild Boy, tracing his life in North Church and later in Berkhamsted, where a leather and brass collar designed to identify Peter in case he should wander away from the village and inscribed "Peter the Wild Man" is preserved at Berkhamsted School.